You know the internet's core address book? The system that lets you find pretty much everything online? Well, what if that entire system is fundamentally unprepared for what's coming next? We're talking about a system built for billions of humans that's now about to face a future with trillions of intelligent AI agents. And one of the internet's original architects, he thinks it's time for a radical upgrade.
So, this whole story kicks off with an email sent to ICANN, the organization that basically runs the internet's domain name system. And it opens with this simple, incredible line from someone who was there right at the beginning, basically signaling, hey, I'm back.
Okay, so the big question is, who is Michael Kor, and why does his name suddenly reappearing in the world of internet governance carry so much weight? Well, his resume, it basically reads like a history book of how the internet was built.
I mean, just look at this. This isn't just some resume. It's a map of the internet's bedrock. He wasn't just using the early internet, he was in the trenches building it. He set up one of ICANN's core root servers at Bell Labs, deployed some of the first ever web servers, and even worked on the first firewalls. And to top it off, he's spent his recent years on the front lines of AI, managing teams at IBM building LLM chatbots. He's seen the past, and he's been building the future.
And this architect is back for a reason. He sees a huge, critical flaw in our current setup, a looming identity crisis for AI that he believes could actually threaten the stability of the entire web. So the first major problem he points to is something called sovereign risk. Right now, the default go-to domain for everything AI is, of course, .ai. But here's the thing. .ai isn't some generic tech domain. It's the official country code for Anguilla, a small island nation in the Caribbean. And to really get the scale of this risk, just look at the money. Anguilla is projected to make almost $50 million from .ai registrations next year alone. That's over 20% of its entire GDP. This creates this massive dependency, and it means a vital piece of global digital infrastructure is in the hands of one nation, basically by total chance. But that's just problem number one. There's another huge issue, linguistic exclusion. For the 1.3 times billion people who speak Spanish, Portuguese, French, or Italian, the natural acronym for artificial intelligence isn't AI, it's IA, for Inteligencia Artificial. The current standard basically walls off a huge part of the world from the conversation. So with those two big problems laid out, sovereign risk and linguistic exclusion, we can finally look at the proposed solution. A brand new vision for an internet that's actually ready for AI. And that proposal is a new top-level domain, .ia. It's designed from the ground up to be linguistically inclusive. It would be internationally governed, like the .eu domain, to get rid of that sovereign risk. And maybe most importantly, it's not just built for humans and companies, but for AI agents themselves. So you see, this is the crucial point. This isn't just about creating another domain name. It's got two core missions. One, to give over 1 billion people an intuitive digital home in the AI era. And two, to build the fundamental identity system for that coming wave of non-human AI agents. Now, let's get into the technicals a little bit, because this is where the idea gets really, really interesting and forward-thinking. At the very heart of this whole proposal is a concept they're calling the twin TLD mechanism. The best way to think about it is like a bridge that connects the internet we all use today, Web 2, with the decentralized Web 3 world of tomorrow. So here's how it would work. You go and register a .ia domain. Instantly, you get your normal website and email address just like any other domain. But at the exact same time, this system mints a permanent, verifiable digital identity on a blockchain, and that's the key. That's what will allow AI agents to securely prove who they are, talk to each other, and even conduct transactions all on their own. And this is where we really start to see the true scale of what's being proposed. This isn't just about another domain name. It's about building the phone book for an entirely new kind of economy. The core insight here is that the next wave of internet users, well, they won't be human. We are right on the verge of a world with trillions of autonomous AI agents, robots, and digital assistants, and every single one of them is going to need a verifiable identity. So if IA actually becomes the standard for this new non-human user base, the financial potential is just staggering. I mean, these projections show that in an aggressive scenario, we could be looking at $1 billion in revenue by 2028. To put that in perspective, by 2030, the projected revenue for .ia could be more than 4 times that of the legendary .com domain. This isn't about competing with .com for human eyeballs. It's about serving a fundamentally new and vastly larger market. But there's one enormous institutional hurdle standing in the way of this entire vision. A real showstopper. So here it is, the big obstacle. ICANN policy strictly, and I mean strictly, reserves all 2-letter domains for country codes, period. Getting an exception to this rule is pretty much the final boss battle in the world of internet governance. But it's not totally impossible. The strategy is to combine 2 powerful historical precedents. First, you have the .eu model, which proved that a domain can be given to a supranational body, not just a single country. And second, there's the .cat model for the Catalan language community, which proved a domain can be created to serve a specific linguistic group. The argument is that .ia is both of these things at the same time. And this really leaves us with the final, provocative question that gets right to the heart of the internet's future. As AI completely reshapes our world, who should be in charge of building its foundational address book? A single nation that just happened to win the domain lottery? Or the global community building it together, on purpose, by design? You know those letters after the dot in a web address? It turns out that's some of the most valuable real estate on the planet. It's a hidden world where fortunes can be made, literally by accident, and where grand, ambitious plans are being drawn up for the entire future of the internet. Let's get into it. Okay, just look at this number for a second. $32 million. What do you think that is? The price of a private jet? Maybe the budget for a blockbuster movie? The real answer is way, way more interesting. Get this, that $32 million is how much the government of Anguilla, a tiny little island in the Caribbean, made in 2023. And not from tourism or exports. They made it from the registration fees for the domain .ai. Yeah, those 2 letters. It's a completely accidental digital gold rush. So here's what we're going to unpack. First, we'll dive into the .ai gold rush itself. Then, we'll look at a bold new proposal for a different domain, one that's aimed at over 1 billion people. We'll explore its super futuristic goal of creating digital passports for AIs, navigate the wild political battle it's going to take to make it happen, and then we'll ask, what does this all mean for the next chapter of the internet? All right, first up, the .ai gold rush. This is the amazing story of how a simple country code, assigned pretty much at random, suddenly became one of the hottest properties on the entire internet. And the impact on Anguilla's economy is just staggering. In 2023, that $32 million was more than 10% of the island's entire GDP. Fast forward to 2024, it's projected to hit $39 million. That's almost a quarter of all government revenue. Some forecasts even suggest this windfall could account for half of the state's entire income by 2025. This is a massive economic shift, and it's all being fueled by the global AI boom. And it's not just new registrations. The resale market is absolutely on fire. I mean, look at these numbers. U.ai sold for $700,000. Fin.ai went for a cool $1 million. This isn't just a trend, it's premium digital real estate. We're talking about 2 letters that are worth more than a mansion. So that accidental success story is the perfect setup for something completely different. A very, very intentional plan for a brand new domain. Let's take a look at the vision for .ia. So who is .ia even for? Well, it's targeting the roughly 1.2 billion people around the world who speak Romance languages. You know, Spanish, French, Portuguese, Italian. It's a gigantic linguistic community that, right now, doesn't really have a natural home in the AI-focused domain world. And the core idea is so simple, it's brilliant. In English, we say artificial intelligence, so we use AI. But in Spanish, it's inteligencia artificial. In Portuguese, Italian, same deal. The natural acronym is IA. The whole argument is that .ia is the intuitive, obvious online home for this massive part of the global population. But the vision here is bigger than just people. The mission statement says it all. It's designed to serve both people and AI. And that little phrase sets up the second, and honestly, the more radical part of this whole plan. Which brings us to part 3, creating an identity layer for artificial intelligence itself. Seriously, think of it like a digital passport, but for the millions, maybe billions, of autonomous AI agents that are coming online. This is a really critical question we have to figure out, and soon. As all these AI agents start doing things for us, buying stuff, making appointments, interacting online, we're going to face a huge problem of trust. How do you know the AI you're talking to is legit and not some kind of scam bot? The solution they're proposing is a really neat piece of technology called a twin TLD architecture. Now, the key thing to understand is this. A single .ia address would work in two worlds at the same time. For you and me, it's just a regular website, but for an AI agent, it's a verifiable, secure identity on a blockchain. It's basically a bridge between the internet we use today and the AI-driven economy of tomorrow. Okay, so a plan this big doesn't just happen. Creating a new two-letter domain is an absolutely massive political challenge. It means navigating the very heart of how the internet is governed. And here is the main roadblock. For decades, there's been a very firm rule. All two-letter domains, like .de for Germany or .jp for Japan, are strictly reserved for countries. ICANN, the group that runs the internet's address book, enforces this. So under the current rules, a non-country domain like .ia is a non-starter. It's just not allowed. So how do you get around a rule like that? Well, you get creative. They have this clever, two-pronged strategy that basically uses historical exceptions as a blueprint. Path number 1 is to follow the precedent set by .eu and petition for a special supranational code. Path number 2 is to follow the precedent of .cat for the Catalan language and apply to ICANN as a domain for a specific linguistic community. It's a really smart approach. Of course, it's not going to be easy. This path is full of major hurdles. For one, people are afraid it could open the floodgates for other two-letter domains. And Gwilla might even object, thinking that .ia could threaten their .ai revenue. But the biggest challenge is that the project has to build a huge coalition of different governments and get them all to agree to support it inside ICANN. This is a high-stakes game of global diplomacy. And this timeline really shows you just how ambitious this is. We're talking about a multi-year effort. It involves launching the coalition this year, securing all that diplomatic support in 2025, and only then submitting an application to ICANN in 2026. A potential launch wouldn't even happen until 2027 at the earliest. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So let's zoom back out for a second. Why does this high-level fight over a couple of letters actually matter to the rest of us? What does it tell us about where the internet is heading? This quote really gets to the core of the whole vision. See, unlike a domain that's controlled by one country or a for-profit company, .ia is being proposed as a totally neutral digital commons. It would be run by a nonprofit group with multinational oversight, and get this, over 90% of the money it makes would be reinvested right back into the community. And the potential here is just massive. Even the most conservative estimates see over 1 million domains being managed by 2030. More moderate scenarios put that number closer to 4.5 million. This thing could become a huge, self-sustaining digital ecosystem. And this right here is the ultimate goal. The point isn't to compete with .com for websites. The goal is to define and become the go-to naming system for an entirely new market, the economy of all those AIs interacting and transacting with each other. It's a huge bet on the future of how our technology is going to work. So it all leaves us with this one big critical question. The story of .ai shows us how the internet can evolve from these crazy lucrative accidents. But the proposal for .ia represents a deliberate, intentional effort to build a piece of our digital world for a global community. So what's it going to be? Will the next chapter of the internet be shaped by pure chance or by conscious design?
You know, every so often a proposal lands on someone's desk that is just so bold, it makes everyone stop what they're doing. And recently, ICANN, that's the organization that basically runs the internet's address book, got one just like that. It came from a name they hadn't heard from in a while, and it started with a line you just can't ignore.
That's it. That's how he opens. No formal, to whom it may concern, just a simple question that carries like decades of history. It's personal, it's a little dramatic, and it makes you immediately ask, okay, who is Michael Kor? And why is he back now with some grand plan for the internet?
Well, turns out he's one of the original architects. This isn't some random guy with a crazy idea. Michael Kor helped build the very foundation we're all standing on. We're talking about setting up one of ICANN's most critical root servers back in the day. He worked with legends like Bill Cheswick on the first firewalls. And more recently, he was at IBM, managing the teams building the very AI chatbots that are taking over the world. So when he says, remember me, he's basically saying, I was here when this was all built, and I know how it works from the bare metal up. And the reason he's back is because he sees that foundation starting to crack. He's not just pitching an idea, he's sounding an alarm. He sees these huge structural problems bubbling up as AI begins to swarm the internet we all use.
Okay, problem number one is just sheer scale. The internet was built for people, humans talking to servers. It was never ever designed for billions, maybe even trillions of non-human AI agents making their own choices, spending money, and talking to each other. It's a totally new kind of traffic, a whole new species of user, and our current setup just isn't ready for that kind of party.
Which brings us to problem number 2, and these numbers tell the story perfectly. The go-to domain for all things AI has become .ai, right? Makes sense. But that domain name is actually the country code for Anguilla, a tiny island in the Caribbean. Now look at that revenue. It went from about $7 million to a projected $50 million in just a few years. That income is now nearly a quarter of the entire country's GDP. That's a lot of pressure on one small nation.
And that pressure has a name: sovereign risk. It's this incredibly fragile situation we've created where the digital identity of a world-changing technology is tied to the local politics and economy of one very small country. What happens if their government changes its policies or faces an economic crisis? The entire global AI ecosystem becomes vulnerable. That is not a stable foundation to build a future on.
And problem number 3 is about something much more human. Language. What's this number? 1.3 billion. That's roughly how many people speak Romance languages. Think Spanish, Portuguese, French, Italian. For all of them, the natural way to say artificial intelligence isn't AI, it's IA, Intelligentsia Artificial. Intelligenza Artificial. By making .ai the default, we've basically left over 1 billion people out of the conversation from the get-go.
So you've got these 3 massive problems: scale, risk, and exclusion. And this is where Core comes in with his solution. He calls it an elegant flip, a simple, brilliant change that tackles all 3 issues in one go.
The idea is pretty straightforward. Instead of .ai, which belongs to Anguilla, let's create .ia. Right away, it becomes instantly intuitive for those 1.3 billion people. But the real game changer is that last row: governance. The plan is to shift from a domain controlled by a single country to one run by a neutral international nonprofit group. Think something like how the .eu domain is managed for Europe.
But look, this is way more than just a name change. The .ia domain is designed to do 2 huge things. First, it would be the foundational identity for all those billions of AI agents we were talking about. A way to verify them, to make their transactions secure, to make sure they are what they say they are. That's the whole AI alignment part. And second, it finally includes that massive community of Romance language speakers. So it solves a huge technical problem and a huge cultural problem at the exact same time.
So how would it actually work? Well, the proposal calls for this clever twin TLD system. On one hand, a .ia domain would work just like any website you visit now, your normal email and web stuff. That's the Web 2 part. But at the same time, it would also be tied to a super secure blockchain-based identity. That's the Web 3 part. So you get the best of both worlds, the familiar, reliable internet we know, plus the rock-solid, verifiable security of Web 3. And for an AI agent that needs to prove who it is, that's absolutely critical.
Okay, so big idea is cool and all, but is it a real plan? Well, this proposal from Michael Core isn't just wishful thinking. It's a full-on blueprint, with a clear governance model, real-world examples to follow, and some pretty eye-watering financial projections.
The governance model is all about stability. Instead of being tied to one nation's government, it would be run by an international body, maybe even with some UN oversight. And this has been done before. It would follow successful models like .eu, which serves all of Europe, or .cat, which serves the Catalan-speaking community. This move completely eliminates that sovereign risk we talked about earlier. And the potential revenue here is just massive. Remember, this isn't about selling domains to people for their blogs. This is about selling digital identities to machines, millions of them. The projection here shows revenue hitting $1 billion by 2028 and soaring to $6 billion by 2030. That growth comes from what the proposal calls the agentic economy, all the transactions that will be happening between autonomous AI agents.
So what happens to all that cash? This might be the most revolutionary part of the whole plan. The charter would require that 90% of all revenue gets reinvested for public good. We're talking funding AI safety research, building out digital infrastructure in developing countries, things like that. It's designed from the ground up to be a global public utility, not some private company's cash cow.
And all of this leads to the final and most important point. This whole conversation isn't really about the letters at the end of a web address. It's about a fundamental choice we have to make right now about what kind of AI-powered internet we actually want to build.
We're really at a crossroads. The choice isn't just .ai versus .ia. The real choice is whether the identity system for this new era of the internet is going to be risky, fragmented, and exclusionary, or if it's going to be stable, unified, and inclusive for everyone. The argument here is that we basically have one shot to get this right and build a new infrastructure properly from the start.
And so it all boils down to this one question. Who should be writing the rules for an internet filled with trillions of autonomous AIs? Should it be a single, small nation that just happened to have the right letters for its country code? Or should it be all of us, the global community, working together to build a safe foundation for whatever comes next? This proposal is Michael Kor's answer, a blueprint from one of the internet's originals for the world he sees coming.
Let's look at a proposal to rewire the internet's identity layer, specifically for AI.
It all starts with this bold letter to ICANN, the internet's governing body. The author? An original architect. And this guy's resume is legit. He literally helped build the system he now wants to upgrade. Now, the DNS is basically the internet's phone book. It's the bedrock, but it was built for people, not AI. So here's the problem. We're about to have billions of AI agents online. This could get unstable. Right now, the home for AI online is the domain .ai, but that's just a country code for Anguilla. And talk about a windfall. For Anguilla, AI revenue has just exploded in the last couple of years. Get this. AI registrations make up almost a quarter of the entire country's yearly revenue. Wow. This creates a huge vulnerability called sovereign risk. So should one small country control AI's digital home? So the proposal offers a really elegant fix. Flip the letters, introducing the .ia domain. And here's why that's so smart. In many languages, the acronym for AI is actually IA. That one change suddenly makes the namespace intuitive for over 1.3 billion people. That's huge. So let's compare. You go from a single nation to an international group, risky to stable, for-profit to public good. How does it work? It's a hybrid system. It links a normal Web 2 domain with a secure Web 3 identity. And the governance model is key. It's designed to be a stable, neutral, and global digital commons. The goal here isn't to compete with .com for humans. It's to serve trillions of future AI agents. And the revenue projections? They are absolutely staggering. We're talking billions because the market is AI agents. This all leaves us with one critical question. Who should really control the digital foundation for all of AI? So, there's this audacious plan for the internet's future, a real digital Hail Mary. Let's break it down. Check this out. In 2023, the tiny island of Anguilla made a cool $32 million. And where'd that come from? Its country domain, .ai. That's over 10% of their entire GDP. It's kind of like they hit the lottery, right? But this story points to something much, much bigger. Yeah, and this incredible success actually shows some major cracks in our current internet system. It basically boils down to three huge problems that the AI boom has put right in our faces. So a new Hail Mary proposal is on the table, and it's trying to fix all three issues at once. The idea is to create a brand new domain, .ia. It stands for Intelligentsia Artificial. And it has a dual purpose. On one side, it helps over 1 billion people. On the other, it's for machines. There's just one tiny problem, a huge one actually. The internet's own rules are standing in the way. You see, ICANN, the internet's governing body, reserves all two-letter domains strictly for countries, period. So how does this plan even have a chance? Well, it gets clever by using history. The strategy is a hybrid approach, combining two special cases from ICANN's own past. First up, the .eu domain. It's not for a country, but for the entire European Union. And second, there's .cat. This one's for the Catalan linguistic and cultural community.
You combine those two precedents, and you get a powerful argument for a new kind of digital identity.
And get this, it's not about making money. The plan is for it to be a nonprofit, digital commons. Now, it would be entering a massive market, right? You've got giants like .com and .net. But think about the billions of AIs coming online. They're all going to need identities. The potential is huge. And that's really the heart of the argument. Our current internet just wasn't built for this reality. So, this whole proposal leaves us with a pretty big question. What kind of internet do we want to build? We're looking at a fascinating email sent to ICANN, the internet's governing body. It kicks off with a pretty bold line from a true internet pioneer, Michael Kor. Talk about an entrance. So who is this guy? Well, let's just say he's got history building the internet from the ground up. I mean, look at this career, from the very beginning of the web to the absolute cutting edge of AI. And now he's taking all that experience and focusing on the next big critical mission. Which is this: with billions of AIs coming online, how do we keep things stable and accountable? His solution? It's all laid out in this ICANN application. It's a proposal for new internet infrastructure. He's proposing a new top-level domain, think .com or .org, but this one's just for AI. The problem is simple. Tons of autonomous AIs are coming. The proposal? A .ai domain to manage them. Okay, so this whole AI thing actually serves a dual purpose. It's pretty clever. First up, it's basically an identity layer for AI, giving every AI a verifiable, secure online ID. And it would do this using a mix of Web 2 and Web 3 tech for security and verification. Now, the second part is really interesting. It's all about global inclusion. See, IA stands for Intelligence Artificielle and Intelligence Artificielle. Right there, that's an intuitive namespace for over 1.3 billion people. Pretty smart, right? So this brings up a really crucial point. Who gets to govern this new domain? He's arguing it needs a model like .eu, managed internationally, not just by one single country. His point is, a global technology like AI really needs international stewardship. It just makes sense. Now, he admits asking for a 2-character domain is a big deal, but he says AI's impact justifies it. So it leaves you wondering, could the internet's old foundation actually be the key to a safer AI future?
All right, let's dive into this wild story about digital real estate. Seriously, it's a tale about pure, dumb luck, an absolute windfall of cash, and a really bold plan to completely redesign a piece of the internet for the age of AI. So our story kicks off right here on this tiny island, Anguilla. It's this beautiful, pretty quiet place in the Caribbean. Its population is smaller than most towns. It seems like the last place on Earth you'd expect to find a tech boom worth millions and millions of dollars. But get this, in 2023, this tiny island nation raked in a staggering $32 million. And this wasn't from tourism, it wasn't from banking. Nope. It came from a digital asset they just happened to own. That entire windfall came from just 2 letters, .ai. You see, decades ago, Anguilla was assigned .ai as its country code, just like Germany has .de or Japan has .jp. And then, by a complete stroke of luck, AI became maybe the most important acronym in all of technology. And just like that, boom, every single artificial intelligence company, every researcher, every startup on the planet wanted a .ai address. It sparked a digital gold rush, and little Anguilla suddenly found itself sitting on top of the mine, turning this obscure country code into a national treasure completely by accident. And this is where it gets really crazy. Just look at the scale of this. In 2023, that revenue was over 10% of the island's entire GDP. That's huge. But look at the projection for 2025. It suggests that this accidental digital asset could make up almost half of the country's entire income. I mean, that is just a stunning transformation. But here's the twist. This incredible story of accidental success actually shines a huge spotlight on some major challenges for the future of the internet. It turns out relying on luck to build our critical infrastructure, well, it has some serious downsides. So here's the first massive problem we're facing. The internet we all use today, it was built for people. But the next internet, that's going to be buzzing with billions, maybe trillions of autonomous AI agents. Think bots, personal assistants, smart devices, all needing to talk and transact with each other. How do they prove who they are? You see, the internet for us, for humans, it's all about websites, emails, and branding. But this coming AI internet has completely different needs. It's got to have a system for verifiable identity. It needs secure machine-to-machine transactions. It needs a fundamental way for all these agents to actually trust each other. Our current system just wasn't built for that.
And then there's problem number 2, language. AI is an English acronym, right? But for more than 1.3 billion people who speak Spanish, French, Portuguese, Italian, the term is inteligencia artificial, or intelligence artificielle. Their natural acronym is IA. So this accidental .ai gold rush has basically locked a huge chunk of the world's population out of their own native digital language for this new era.
Okay, so this brings us to a really bold proposal designed to fix both of these problems. What if, instead of relying on accidents of geography, we actually built a new digital frontier for AI on purpose? Let me introduce you to the concept of the .ia domain.
The idea here is just so elegant. Create a brand new top-level domain, .ai, built from the ground up for the age of AI. It would solve both problems in one shot. It would serve that critical need for a verifiable identity layer for AI agents, while at the same time creating an intuitive, inclusive digital home for those 1.3 billion Romance language speakers.
Now, this is the really crucial part. How would it be governed? Unlike .ai, where all the money flows to one country, the plan for .ia is to run it as a digital commons. Think of it as a resource owned and managed by the global community. It would be run by a neutral, international nonprofit, a lot like the .eu domain. This whole model ensures stability, it avoids political risks, and it means over 90% of the revenue gets reinvested right back into the community.
Okay, it sounds like a fantastic idea, right? But there's one huge hurdle. According to the rules that govern the internet, creating a new 2-letter domain like this is, well, it's pretty much impossible. So how on earth could this ever happen?
And I'm not kidding. This is the actual rule from ICANN, the organization that manages all of this. 2-letter domains are strictly reserved for country codes, period. It keeps the system from becoming a mess. So, on the surface, this rule makes the whole .ia proposal a complete non-starter.
So how do you get around a rule that seems written in stone? Well, this is where the strategy gets really clever. The plan is to combine 2 historical exceptions to the rules. First, you point to the .eu domain and argue that .ai represents a supranational interest, a global technology that doesn't belong to any one country. Then you point to the .cat precedent for the Catalan language and argue that .ai also serves a specific community, in this case, a massive global linguistic group. It's this unique hybrid argument for a totally unique time in history.
So, let's just imagine this audacious plan actually works. What's the scale here? Just how big could this new digital frontier really be?
This table really puts it all into perspective. I mean, of course, nothing is going to touch .com, it's the undisputed king. But look at the conservative projection for .ia. By 2030, we could be looking at 1.3 million domains, generating around $65 million a year. That puts it right up there with heavy hitters like .ai and .co, making it a major player on the internet right from day one.
And all of this leaves us with one final, really crucial question. The story of IA.ai shows us a future that's built by accident, a lucky break that created a huge windfall, but also some deep structural problems. The proposal for IATA.ai, on the other hand, represents a totally different path. It's a future built by design, with intention, with inclusivity, and with global stewardship baked in from the start. Which one of those paths we choose is going to define the internet for generations to come.
Today, we're looking at a wild proposal to reshape the internet for the AI era. It all kicks off with a surprising story about the domain name that basically defines AI, .ai. Check this out. In 2023, .ai domains pulled in $32 million, just from registrations. And that cash didn't go to some tech giant, it went to the tiny Caribbean island of Anguilla. Get this. That revenue was more than 10% of the entire country's GDP, all from 2 letters. So this unexpected gold rush got an internet OG thinking. He reached out to ICANN, the internet's governing body. And that pioneer is Michael Kor. This is a guy who helped build the internet's foundations. He argued that something this big needs a more intentional design. His solution? A new domain, .ia. So .ai has a two-part mission, and it's pretty ambitious.
First up, it's about people, specifically the over 1.3 billion who speak Romance languages. See, for them, EI is the natural acronym for artificial intelligence, way more intuitive than the English AI. And second, it's for the AIs themselves. Think of it as a digital passport for every AI agent. But there's a big problem. A core internet rule says two-letter domains are only for countries.
So that rule makes .ia seem kind of impossible, right? Well, what's the workaround?
The strategy is to create a special exception by combining two clever precedents in internet governance.
First, use the .eu model for international governance. Then, add the .cat model for a linguistic community.
But to pull this off, they need a huge coalition. Governments, tech groups, AI companies, and the public. And if it works, projections show .ia could become a major player right alongside .ai. So the vision here isn't just another domain. It's a public resource managed for everyone. Which leaves us with a big question. As AIs flood the internet, how do we adapt its core identity system?